We're very delighted to welcome our next keynote speaker today for a fireside chat on rising the ranks, Aline Santos Farhat. Aline Santos is responsible for global marketing, communication, and innovation excellence, marketing services, and marketing capabilities at Unilever. She's the Chief Brand and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Unilever. She's responsible for driving positive change within the organization to ensure equity, diversity, and inclusion are central to Unilever's values and behaviors. I'm so excited to welcome you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's jump right in. So, let's start at the beginning. How did your journey start? How did you get where you were? Just tell us a bit about your journey.
So first of all, thank you so much, Navya, for inviting me, and it's a real delight to be here with all these ladies and some gentlemen as well. Very few, but some gentlemen as well. Hello. I was so impressed with the last panel. I learned so much about interviews. For my next interviews, I will definitely take some of the tips. And definitely will pass on some of the tips to my two sons who are also, thriving as you are in the marketplace. But as Navya said, I work for Unilever. What she didn't say is that I have some other jobs as well. I'm part of the board for a Swedish company of furniture called IKEA, and I'm also at the board of a museum here in London, the Victoria and Albert Museum. So it's a very rich job, very complex as well. But I think that the way I would like to start this conversation is from the very beginning. I started actually as a little kid living in Brazil, where I was born and raised. And I had the most wonderful childhood, wonderful. But one day something changed in my childhood. One day a movie from Hollywood came to Brazil. It's an old movie, maybe you don't know this movie. The name of the movie is Alien from Ridley Scott. I don't know, do you know this movie? Yeah? It's about a monster. And this movie came to Brazil, and the translator got the name of the movie wrongly. So instead of calling it Alien, they call it Aline, my name. And everybody at school was bothering me and bullying me, saying, Aline the monster, Aline this, Aline that. And I was really troubled with that. And my mom said, don't get troubled. Just go and watch the bloody movie. And then I went. And then I was sitting there. And I was shocked. Because in that movie, for the first time in my life, I saw a reference of a very strong woman. That was Sigourney Weaver. She was playing the role of Sergeant Ripley. And she was the boss of the spaceship. She was killing all the monsters. She was giving the orders. She was defining the future of that spaceship. And for me, I knew it was just a movie. It was not a reality. But it was like Sigourney was looking at me and saying, Aline, wake up. You can be whoever you want to be. And that movie, honestly, changed my life. That movie gave me that insight that I didn't need to be a teacher like my mom or a housewife as majority of my aunties. I could be whoever I wanted to be. So that was the importance of representation. Representation, when you see something, you believe you can be something. And that was the starting point of me saying, I wanted to have a business, I wanted to work in business, and I wanted to represent people in the best possible way in the businesses that I'm going to be conducting. And here I am, many moons later, at Unilever, where we have more than 400 brands, and we are working very hard, not only to make our brands grow, but to grow with purpose, grow in an inclusive way, grow in a way that our advertising is unstereotyping the representation of our society and removing people from barriers and boxes that they were put in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aline, for that inspiring story. I think, a lot of us can relate to it, especially in childhood, because a lot of people get called names and whatnot. Yeah. And I think, using that and making it a positive channel is what really you've, shown us that we can all do. I do want to dig deeper into your role at Unilever because you've done just so much and you've created so much value for the business. What does your average day-to-day look like?
Well, I wake up very early in the morning. I'm a student of metaphysics, so every morning I meditate for 45 minutes. Then I have a wonderful walk in the park with my dog, Luna. And then I go to my day. But that meditation that I do every morning and follow the meditation, a bit of yoga, that grounds me. That gives me the balance, the stillness, the clarity. So everything becomes much easier during the day. Everything becomes much more fluid. So it's not much of a rush. And although I have all these jobs, I can have all these jobs because I've been doing this for a long time. So I've been a marketeer for more than 30 years. So it's not overnight that you can accumulate so many different things. And I have a most phenomenal team around me. So I can count with a lot of people. So my key role is really defining the briefs, defining what we need to do, bringing a vision, defining a strategy. The doing of it, I have a lot of amazing people around me doing.
No, I completely agree about that point you mentioned, especially about the team. I mean, look at the Women's Summit. In order to get the Women's Summit up today, I think there's so many hard-working women who've really been working day and night to make this happen. So completely agree that a team is really important.
Indeed. And let me say another thing. I think it's very important. I think that I work super hard. Don't misunderstand me. But I don't feel that I'm that hamster wheel. I feel that what I'm putting there is an outcome that is worth it. So if you are in the hamster wheel, I don't think that is really valid. So you really have to think about what you're doing. Is it worth it? Because if it's not, then don't do it. And just to complement, I also have a very strong family life. And I have the most wonderful husband. And since there are many girls here, I think that this is a very important tip that I give to you. Please, please, please be careful about choosing your partner. Your partner can be, a trampoline in your life, can, catapult you to success in every area of your life, any dimension of your life. If he loves you, he will allow you to go. But a partner can be also an anchor that can drag you down. I've seen so many women, talented women, that didn't find the right partners. And the partner are making their lives infernal, like hell. So please, please, please be careful when choosing your partners. Actually, this is also valid for men as well. Choosing the partners is something super important. My husband is my greatest supporter. He was also in a very powerful career when we were in Brazil. Now in London, he completely changed his career because he's also finding something that is more worthy. But one thing that I do every year is that every year I start planning my year full of different trips between me and my husband, me and my kids, all together. I'm always planning ahead moments that I can preserve my family life. And every 5 years, what I do is I marry him again. So we have a wedding. Every 5 years we have a different wedding. And every 5 years we choose a different location. So we had a very fun Mamma Mia wedding in Greece. We had a very fun 1001 Nights wedding in Marrakesh. So different places. And and that combination of your personal life, your professional life, actually I say the integration of your professional life and your personal life is very, very critical for your health, for your mental health, for your emotional health, for your spiritual health. So again, another little tip for you, don't fall into just work, you have to have other things in your life.
I think I love that story as well about, marrying again. I think some of us might take you up on that tip later down the line. And just moving on a little bit to, your role at Unilever. You have, in 2019, I'm just going to bring the statistics right, because it's a huge achievement that, in your capacity, you've spearheaded Unilever's strategy for gender balance, where Unilever actually achieved 50-50 in 2019. So, I mean, that's amazing. I think that deserves a round of applause. And I want to dig further into how did you empower so many women to achieve that potential, and what can organizations do to do that as well?
So first of all, starting from women, I think that what Sigourney Weaver in that film Alien showed me is that, we all suffer from a stereotype. We all suffer from a perception about what women should be. And she broke that stereotype for me. So for me, I'm very passionate about breaking stereotypes. So we created a movement internally at Unilever called Unstereotype. And that started in advertising, paying attention how we were portraying people in our advertising, how we really portraying people that are a mirror of our society or just representing white people, which is a sub-segment of our society. That was one element. It's not only about race and ethnicity, but it's about gender, sexual orientation, ability, disability, religion, socio-economic levels. Ideally, Unilever would have a representation of society leading that company. If we want to do good business, we have to have a representation of the real society. We need to be closer to that. And we started with that, and we started engaging the top level of the company. If there is no seniority, there is no priority. So I said, I'm not going to start investing my time into this if the CEO of this company is not committed to that. And I've been very lucky that all the CEOs that we have been having are very committed to the equity, diversity, and inclusion agenda. When you are working in an agenda like that, you have to think about, what are the things that are going to change the company in a systemic way. You cannot depend on people that are passionate about this agenda. You have to think about how you're going to change the policies, the practices, the behaviors, the culture of the company. And today, the company has transformed quite a lot, but yet there's a lot to be done. A lot of people talk about equality, which is great. But equality is great when you have the same starting point. Equality is not sufficient. Equality isn't equal. Equity is. Equity is when you observe the different starting points that different people have. And therefore they need different things to really take the full opportunity that the company can offer to you. It's like, in a simple way, it's like, equality is like if I give you a pair of shoes. All of you are going to get the same pair of shoes. That's great. That's fairness. This is about equality. But equity is going to ask you, what is your size, Navya? What is it? Yeah? Tell me.
Like an 8.
8? So, 8 for you. Yeah, for me, 36 European. I don't know in England which one is that. But definitely a different size. So equity takes into account the differences that we have. So now at Unilever, we are revising all our policies that were done like 50 years ago by a group that was very similar, not diverse enough, and we are challenging it. Is this policy good enough for women, for people with disabilities, for people with different races and ethnicities, underserved groups? And with that, we change policies, practices, and culture, and eventually we become a more equitable company.
Yeah, no. And I think you raised an excellent point there. I hesitate myself for a bit, when you asked me that question about the size, but I think it's so important because sometimes we can all feel like, and then you start to realize that there's no shame in it, and we all need to be confident in our bodies, in whatever.
And why you would be reserved about your size? Yes.
Well, I think in the instant when you brought it up, I was instantly like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that, which I think a lot of people might also feel.
Yeah, really.
At times, but I think you raised an excellent insight there that it's so important to appreciate ourselves and self-love.
Absolutely. Self-love is the beginning of everything. It's the beginning of everything. And, know that you are much more than you think you are, especially when you are young as you are, especially when you are at the beginning of your careers. You have so many doubts, you have, so many questions, you have all the kind of syndromes. Please, erase this from your mind. You are much more than you think you are. You try to live life in a way that is fear-free. I wouldn't say not even fearless, fear-free. Don't allow fear to be in your system. fear is the most toxic thing that you can have in your system. So whenever fear comes, yeah, do something. Listen to music, go have a shower, run, play with a kid, play with a dog. Do something to change your vibration, to change that fear, yeah, and infuse yourself with love.
Yeah, and I think all of us can take that main point about being fear-free from now on. And just moving forward into the theme of leadership here, a lot of us want to create impact in our careers and we want to be leaders someday. And as a leader yourself, what do you think we can all do, and what are the skills we can develop to get there?
I think that again, I think everything starts with this self-love. I'm not saying to be self-obsessed is very different. Actually, self-obsessed is not good at all to anyone, but self-love is. So having self-love, going through yourself, trying to understand yourself, understanding what makes you tick, what are the things that make you create this sense of joy. Because when you find that job that is on top of your purpose, you don't have to work one day in your life. Yeah? And then finding your purpose, I think, is a very, very important thing. It doesn't come overnight. It's not that you're going to wake up one day and say, oh, my purpose is this. It will take you some time. And you have to connect the dots, things that happen in your life. Yeah? It's like there was a life that was already written, but you don't know yet. And then you look back and say, oh, that happened, that happened, that happened. Oh my gosh, I felt so great when those things happened. What is in common there? And for me, it's really about breaking stereotypes. It's really about creating a world where people have this deep sense of belonging. So every work that I do in marketing and how we teach marketing at Unilever is to become more inclusive. Every work that I do in equity, diversity, and inclusion is to become more inclusive. When I do my job in the museum, the museum here in London, Victoria and Albert Museum, which is the most feminine museum in London, it's to become more inclusive. We are building new museums now, you will see more. We are going to extend to areas that are not so privileged. People, not everybody lives in South Kensington, so we are going to extend to other areas as well. And the same with IKEA, which is a brand that is accessible for the many. So I think that finding your purpose is very important. The other element to be successful is don't try to work in a company where your values are not aligned with the company. Yeah, I think it's going to be a waste of time for the company and for you. So when I was paying attention to what the ladies were saying here at the stage, and one of them were talking about, you need to test and see if you really enjoy it. Absolutely. But the part of this enjoyment is checking if your values, personal values, are in alignment with the company values. Because if they are not, this is not the place for you. You are only going to flourish if they are aligned. Throughout my career, I've been invited to work in some industries that I cannot work because I don't feel like. I cannot work in tobacco. I've been invited many times to work in tobacco companies. It's something that I don't share the values. I've been invited many times to work in companies that sell alcohol. I drink alcohol, I drink wine, I appreciate wine, but I don't want to use my intelligence, my time to sell more alcohol. I'm coming from a country where majority of people get killed because of fights, because of alcohol. So I'm not going to sell alcohol. So there are things that you find out in your own cases. What are the things that tick? At Unilever, what attracted me is that since the beginning, Unilever was an inclusive company, and since the beginning, a company that was very conscious about the environment. Sustainability is one of the most important values at Unilever. And now more than ever, I would never work in a company that doesn't have a very strong plan in how to make this world more sustainable. So yeah, I think these were some of the tips that I want to share.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing. And truly the impact that you've created with your work is commendable, honestly. And, United Nations recently released a statement at Women's Day about still taking 300 years to bridge that gap. I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on it? And what do you think organizations can do to build a more gender equity world?
I think that there are so many amazing organizations. UN Women is one of them, many other NGOs. But we cannot count with the NGOs or the government to change the world, to make this world a more inclusive, more equitable world. This is only going to happen if the private sector steps in. The private sector has the money, the capabilities, the resources, a lot of experience as well to change that. So we have to come together. So only together we can do this change. The size of our responsibility is exactly the size of our privilege. And I think that companies like Unilever have a lot of privileges in many different areas. So we have a huge responsibility. That's why, for instance, again, to change things in a more systemic way, instead of just doing this movement of unstereotyping inside Unilever, we decided to go to UN Women and create the Stereotype Alliance. So for the first time, we invited all our competitors, we invited the whole industry and say, you know what? In this kind of area of diversity and inclusion, we should not compete. We should help each other because the world needs us, to collaborate, to drive this agenda further. And now we have more than 300 companies. We are in 190 countries. So many things are happening. So this is how you stimulate change. The numbers are not great. COVID put us backwards. But we cannot give up. We have to double down our efforts because it has never been a more important time. And one thing that makes me sad is that I see that some people only act when big movements like #MeToo happen or Black Lives Matter happen. You know, Black Lives Matter happened. George Floyd died. A lot of people started to talk about, a lot of companies started to put things in place. Last month was Black History Month. I didn't see much. So it faded, in time. So this is something that we cannot just wait for movements or another person to be killed. We have to keep fighting, we have to keep, working, and the private sector has to use its voice.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And also, the part about having a voice, even in this room, all of us have a voice to, be the change makers. And
Correct.
I think that's something we can really take into account as we move into second years or third years of uni or even post-uni. And I think we have time for one or two questions before we open it up to audience Q&A.
Yeah.
But was there like a story that really shaped you, apart from the story you shared with us earlier, any hurdle that you faced, as a woman throughout your career, and how did you overcome that?
I had many hurdles, thousands of stories. Maybe one fun story is happened in the year 2000, so 23 years ago. Some of you were not even born. But 23 years ago, I became a vice president for Unilever in Brazil. And my boss said to me, Aline, there was a candidate, Marcelo. Marcelo was so good, and we wanted to give him this job, but now he's going to be expatriated to London, so he's not going to take the job. Second candidate was John. John was phenomenal. He did this and that, but his wife has a personal problem. He will have to move to another country as well. So you are the third candidate, and we are not so sure about you becoming vice president. But would you like to take the chance? And I said, thank you for for telling me the whole story. Yes, I have the confidence. Yes, give it to me. I'll do my best. And then he said, okay, so come. So in the board, there were rooms for each of the vice presidents. And he brought me to my room. And he said, oh, this is your office now. And it was a beautiful office. These days, we don't have offices anymore. Everything is open space areas. And I said, that's fantastic. Where is the ladies' room? Where's the restroom that I can use? And then he said, oh my gosh, we never had any woman here. You are the first woman in the board. So we just have one bathroom for men. So don't you worry. I'm going to talk to all the vice presidents, and they are going to get to know that you are going to use the bathroom now. So don't you worry, we will talk to them. And I said, what? Yeah, and the bathroom at that time, they had those urinals, those kind of, I said, come on. No way I'm going to use that. So as vice president, my first decision is to build a ladies' restroom. And he said, okay, fine. So, I think in 10 days I built that restroom. And it was beautiful, the way we like it, with a full mirror, with hair dryer, everything that we love. And then there was the inauguration of the bathroom, and my boss, the CEO, came to inaugurate, to cut the ribbon. And he cut the ribbon, and then he put on the door, Aline Santos, because it was the only woman. But the interesting thing is that what he didn't notice is that I was not the only woman. I was the only woman vice president, but there were 8 secretaries that were there forever, all female, and they didn't have a bathroom, and they had to go to another floor to go to the bathroom. So you see how invisible they were? You see how women are invisible many, many times? So of course, I made a big fuss about that as well. We changed that. There was not Aline Santos there anymore. It was the ladies' bathroom for every woman that were on the floor. But these are the sort of things. Then I joined this board, and it was the first time that they were seeing this alien getting into the room, and all men, majority of them quite old. And I arrived there. And I said, I have to have a strategy here. If I come with all my, personality and my, force of nature, I think that it's going to cause a lot of drama. So I said, let me start using the technique of eating a porridge. Do you know the technique of eating a porridge? The technique to eat a porridge or eating a soup is very simple. If you don't want it to burn your tongue, you don't put the spoon in the middle of the soup and then in your mouth. You just go through the borders. You go slowly from the borders, eating in a way that's still warm, but you don't burn your tongue. So that was the technique that I used. Instead of bringing my full personality, I started slowly but surely understanding each of them, understanding the game that they were playing, understanding the rules of that game, understanding the content, over-preparing for the meetings, and, really contributing, not polarizing. At the moment that this gets started, and I started to get their attention, their approval, then I started to bring more and more of my own colors. At one point, I was Aline 100%. But at the beginning, I was just being a little bit cautious, not allowing to be another person. I was not becoming another person, but I was just a little bit cautious, just understanding the rules of the game. I didn't want it to burn my tongue, so it was slowly but surely. And then eventually, it was so much easier. The next step, of course, was to say, one woman is not enough. We have to have more. If you really want to change the culture of this company, you have to have at least 30% of women in this board. And suddenly this started to happen. That also started to happen in my IKEA board. When I joined IKEA, they never ever hired anyone that was not from IKEA for the board. Everybody who was in the board of IKEA worked in IKEA in their entire lives. I was not from IKEA. I never ever bought anything from IKEA. I was in Brazil. In Brazil there is no IKEA. But eventually they invited me to become part of the board. And I said, I will come, but you have to have a commitment with me that there will be more women. And 1 year after, they started to hire. So, that is the sort of, challenges that we all have, in the past and today. And we will continue to have, but we have to be smart and strategize.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing both of those stories. I think, just standing up, just by getting that washroom built, you stood up for so many women who felt like they didn't have a voice. And the second story about porridge, that's definitely one I'm going to remember next time I'm stepping into the organization. And I think a lot of us will also try and, delve deeper into that advice. So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
One final question I have before we open it up to one or two audience questions. What would you tell the 21-year-old Aline today?
I think I would say just one thing to her. I think I would say to her to start studying metaphysics earlier. That's the only thing I would say to her. These studies for me are so transformative, so helpful, makes me feel, in a kind of a joyful level of energy most of the time. And when you are in this level of energy, wonderful things happen to you. This is so important that, my two sons, Felipe and Federico, 21, 23, they are already on metaphysics as well and already seeing the magic and the transformation. That's the only thing I think I would do differently in my life. Learn that, learn the techniques, and with that have a better grasp of who I am and the way to mastering myself throughout life.
Wow, thank you so much for taking our time with us today.
Pleasure.
We do have one question, time for one question. Anyone? Yes.
Okay. That was very inspiring.
Thank
I
you.
loved the interview. I would say it's quite intimidating for young women like us to enter like these big brands and companies. So what would you say are your tips for like increasing our confidence and building our confidence so that we can step foot into these big companies and feel like we can change?
I think that many of the tips that the ladies that were here before are super valid. I think that the best thing to do, and that's what I say to my sons as well, is preparation. Depending on the industry that you are getting in, I think it's very important to understand the landscape. What is this industry about? Not only the company, but what is the industry about? What they are talking about? What are the major challenges? Try to learn about what are the potential solutions for those challenges. Try to learn about what is the culture and the style and the tone of voice that the company has as well. Because sometimes you have the right content, but you don't have the right connection with the company because you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the tone of voice. So I think that preparation is the best thing ever for everything that you're going to do, because when you prepare, your confidence comes, yeah? When, I'm sure that when you are studying and you have a very good presentation for any subject, because you prepared, yeah, you are proud to present, you are even excited to present. So although you are a little bit insecure, because presentations and stages make us a little bit insecure, yeah, you are, feeling good about your content. It's the same for an interview. And women, unfortunately, have this kind of syndrome of having, I'm not good enough. I'm not right for that job. Yeah. So women has this a little bit more than men, and this is again the force of the stereotypes that are imposed into us. This is not true. There's no reason for that. Yeah. So be fear-free. Don't take things too seriously as well. If you don't pass into an interview, if that door shuts, another door is going to open to you. Yeah, so trust the universe.
Well, that's all the time we have, but thank you so much again for being
My pleasure. Thank you.
We wholeheartedly believe empowered women empower women. This is King's College London's Women in Business Society.